morning, everybody. It's 10 o'clock a.m. I'm going to wait till 10:02 just to get started, just to give a couple of people the time to settle in, but it's good to see so many people this early on a morning. So we'll be right with you. As you sign in, it'd be helpful if you could mute yourself. The numbers should be okay, but if interested, you can shut your video. If you start to get any lag, that will help with that as well.
Still letting some people in, Mr. Colleen.
Thank you, sir.
I just sent another update to people as well. We will record this morning and we can share it out when we're finished.
Perfect.
You will get an echo if you're on multiple devices, so you want to make sure you've muted the devices.
Dr. Daly, I'll wait for you to give me the go because I can hear the dinging of people coming in. So when
You're getting lots of doorbells, yeah?
Yeah, let me know when you think we're good to go, and I'll start.
It's like when you make popcorn in the microwave, like wait 30 seconds from the last whatever, right?
Get that last kernel.
I would say we should probably give another minute just in case some people get that email as a reminder.
It's safe to say too, Patrick, because you're just doing part of that welcome, correct? That you'll be able to, if people are going through the presentation, to let them in a little bit late as well, correct?
Exactly.
Perfect.
So thank you everyone for joining us. I really appreciate the time. We've got some of our educators and teachers on the line, the principals, and I have worked with those folks to put together a presentation to answer some of the frequently asked questions that have been coming in, and we hope to be able to provide as much information as we possibly can today. As you can imagine, there's still a lot of questions that we have about so many things, but I just want to say that, you know, I have a child going into kindergarten as well. I have these conversations with my wife every day about just, you know, making sure that he's safe, making sure that, you know, if he's going to go back, that it's as safe as possible. And we completely understand the the concerns that you have, especially for our youngest learners. That's why we've kind of prioritized bringing those students in for 5 days a week, try to give them the supports that they need. And we're doing this in the safest environment that we possibly can do, with the 6 foot of spacing in all of our classrooms, and with all of our students and staff with masks and with cleaning protocols in place. So I'm going to hand it over to the principals, but I do want to say that I certainly understand the concern, and I hope that this information is very helpful.
On that big paved area out there, and then I'm looking like, what are you using for foot markings? I am posting this meeting.
Okay, so I've just passed that on to you there.
So, Mr. Clean, you're up.
You might need to unmute yourself, Mr. Clean. I just muted you.
You're still muted, Sean.
There we go. I'm back. Can you confirm that I'm back?
You're
Yep,
back.
you're back.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Quite a lot has changed in the past 7 months. So I want to thank all the teachers and everybody that's been working so hard to get us ready for the 2021 school year. We've been working so hard to get you the best information to make the best decisions for your child, as we said back in January. So today we're going to walk through some of the information with you to make sure that you have what you need to be able to make the decision for your kindergartner. Some of our pictures, and we'll talk about these as we go through, just to what that new norm might look at, like kindergarten in here, and social distancing and mask wearing, full day kindergarten versus half day kindergarten. Our timeline has started really since the close of school last year, trying to figure out exactly how public schools could reopen in Massachusetts. There's been a lot of great work. It has pivoted and changed several times over the course of the summer. But we sent in our initial plan on July 31st. We took feedback from students, staff, and family. We received approval from the school committee on August 7th for the hybrid model. We also were charged with, as elementary principals and staff, we understand that we want our younger students to be in-person learning as much. And we started with kindergarten, where we continue to look at first grade. At this time, we're not planning at first grade at the beginning, but we are looking to start with kindergarten to see if we can, how we're going to manage that and go forward. The final reopening plan has been shared with all families. Today, we're having our kindergarten parent forum with, believe it or not, in less than 2 weeks, our staff will come in to participate in 10 days of professional development to help us prepare for the 2020-21 school year, with our first day for students scheduled for September 17th.
Excellent. Hi, Glenn McKay here. I'm going to talk a little bit about the description of the cohorts. For purposes of this group that's today, the kindergarten group, we're looking down to that cohort C, which means that students come every day along with other students with different descriptors in cohort C. For other purposes, for families with other students, you have cohort A and B. So cohort A would be a Monday, Tuesday, and a floating Wednesday, which we've discussed in other forums. And cohort B would be the Thursday, Friday, with a floating C for other purpose, for every other Wednesday. Cohort D students are students that are going full remote. So those are the 4 categories within that. For purposes of this discussion, we're talking to students in cohort C. If you received any other information about a second cohort, meaning an A or B designation, those are more of a backup plan if a scenario should come forward, that we want to just be well planned for those kind of things. But as of right now, we're using the cohort C designation with A and a B as a backup plan for this group. Mr. Colleen, if you could go to the next slide. So if you look at this, this is for the A and B descriptors, knowing that if you go 4 columns down, you become that cohort C in person every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. One special note is that half day for all students on a Wednesday, regardless of cohort designation.
And that just gets us back to the timeline where we're, for the 10 days of professional development, that outlines what we're doing with the staff, reviewing the safety protocols, what classroom setup should look like, different protocols within the building for traveling. Then we're going to support our teachers, continue to support our teachers. They did such a fantastic job in the 3rd trimester, learning new tools and best practices for using technology in the classroom. Then we're working on social justice. And then we want to give the teachers the time in the building to prepare for curriculum planning and collaboration, working with one another to kind of frame out what this new September will look like. So we recognize the importance of that time and our teachers and working with them to make sure that we're set for when your students arrive. We are hoping, and you'll hear more about this later in the presentation, traditionally, we've always done kindergarten orientation with parents. It's been the first 2 days of school, and then the kindergartners have started on Friday. We're building that into those September 14, 15, and 16 dates, where we might have some time for student walkthroughs and families to be able to go through that. And then the first day of school, September 17th, like Dr. McKay said, the hybrids are really not relative to any of our kindergarten students right now, because we're expecting you every day in person with the half days on Wednesday. One of the hardest decisions I think that families are faced in these times is looking at what do we do about full day kindergarten. It's a tuition-based program, and what does that mean for families? And we understand that. You know, it is something that we've been talking about pre-pandemic as far as how to make full day kindergarten free for all students. It's just been a challenge for our community in the way that we're budgeted and costed out to be able to offer that. In response to understanding the situation that we're in, we've agreed with support that the tuition for the 2020-21 year has been reduced to $3,500. And you notice this further consideration if we are in full remote. So I'm going to try to frame this because I think this is some of the important stuff. And I know I got distracted right at the beginning of the meeting because somebody came in that I had to speak to. If any of these questions that you may have, you may type into the chat and we'll answer them at the end. But just leave the chat for the questions only, please, and we'll get to those at the end, because I'm sure there'll be some questions about this, and we want to give you, just like I said, the best information so you can make the best decision possible for your family and your child. So the tuition will be $3,500, of which you've already paid your $250 deposit for full day kindergarten. You should have, or we have already received, a $1,000 payment on August 1st. That refundable date is September 1st. We built that in because we realized that the game was changing, right? So now we have our game plan. We're still filling in a lot of details, and we understand that. But our game plan as far as what full day kindergarten look like versus half day is more defined. So that's why you have up until September 1st to make a decision that, you know what, maybe this isn't what I thought I was signing up for back in February. Maybe it is half day, and that's where it is. And if you know after this presentation, the sooner you can let your respective schools know, the better off we will be to be able to start planning, because as those numbers change, our lives change too. So we want to be working with you directly on that. So your next payment will be on October 16th for $1,000. That's our fall, $2,250 in. And then we're putting off our next payment until January 15th. So we'll print this up and get these to families as part of that orientation part, the new tuition agreement. You have it here. You can take a picture. Like I said, Patrick's recording, and we'll make it available as well, with the March 12th payment to be moved to April 30th. We're prepared, and we understand that further adjustments may need to be made to the final 2 payments for the 2020-21 school year. Where our math is and how we afford to offer full-day kindergarten, which does pay salaries for teachers and paraprofessionals, is really that up to that October 16th is that kind of like that baseline tuition. So we're looking at kind of using that 2,250 definite as far as here's where we are. That's what, if we end up going remote for whatever period of time, the furthest we'll back down to is about that 2,250 is what we're looking at. So those other numbers could be adjusted by the number of remote days that if we have to go remote. And we're prepared that if we have to go remote for a period of time, but then we're able to come back to a hybrid, and for kindergarten, hybrid just means full in person. And I'm sorry, I use it interchangeably just because it's the school speak. But if we're coming back and it's safe for your students to be back, all of your students will be back on the same day. Okay, so that's kind of the numbers of it all for full day kindergarten tuition, which I think is an important part of this presentation and what most families are struggling with, because they know the quality of the education that they get in all of our programs here in kindergarten. But I do understand that being a big question.
Hi, everybody. It's Christine Molly from the Little School. Glad you're all here today to join us. So I know there's been a lot of conversation and a lot of writing on social media about concerns about mask wearing in young children. And this slide addresses some of the science and studies that we've heard from experts in the area, in their areas of expertise. And we all have heard, and most of us believe that masks will save lives. So we believe that everybody in a school setting should be wearing a mask, even K-1 students. We understand that it prevents the spreading of the virus, especially with staff and students that may be asymptomatic. So, you know, our goal and our focus is to promote the wearing of masks among all of our students and staff, except for those children who might be medically unable to do so. So it's our goal to create a caring mask culture and to teach children to understand why it's important that they wear a mask. And, you know, some of the simple language that we'll be using with children is that masks will help keep us safe, and that some people can't wear masks for different reasons. And the school will maintain safety protocols for all students. And just a little bit of an insight as to what our experience might be in the classroom. I can envision teachers and administrators saying to students, please don't chew on your mask. No, you may not blow your nose in your mask. You're not a pirate. Please take your mask off your eye. So that's just a little bit of what we anticipate our day is going to look like. Obviously, health and safety is our #1 priority with our students and staff. So we will have protocols in place, and we will do training as far as hand washing and sanitizing. We've had sanitizing stations installed in all of the schools right outside the classrooms. We will be teaching the children about physical distancing. We have created cohorts in order to keep groups of children together in the classrooms. There'll be school cleaning and disinfecting protocols put in place. Our custodians are hard at work at cleaning the schools and disinfecting areas, and that will obviously go on throughout the school year, every day, multiple times a day. A big question has been ventilation. Our ventilation systems in all of our schools are being inspected, thoroughly cleaned. New filters are being put in place to all systems. There's new technology being added to some of the rooftop systems at some of the schools that can handle that. And for spaces that may not have windows, we will be installing ionizers in those areas. And lastly, we will put into place movement protocols within the building and on the school property to ensure 6 foot of social distancing. There'll be markings on the floors in the buildings, and we will be reviewing all of that with the children when they first come into the buildings.
And Mrs. Molly did a great job talking about the ventilation and the HVAC settings. So things that we're doing, just so you know, usually would have our air controls on just when the students were in the building. We're going to leave them on all the time to keep the air moving through the building. Obviously, we're talking a lot about how much we can do with the windows open when the weather is appropriate and it's safe, to be able to kind of keep air moving through the building. And then, like Mrs. Molly said, everything's been inspected and we feel very good about where we are with our HVAC systems in all buildings. You're seeing pictures of efforts that we'll be making in our schools to be going over some of the flow within the building. That's where the hybrid comes in. Like in the hybrid model, we're bringing in about 58% now of our students, with all of our kindergartners being there full in person. So it takes a lot of stress of how many people are actually in the building, and be able to move through that. We're still working with food service, but we are currently working under lunches will be available to purchase, to be in the building, so you can have your student bring your lunch, and we have a couple more slides about lunch and snack as we go forward. Unfortunately, one of the hardest things for us, especially in the elementary school, is we're really going to be limiting the number of adults that come into the building. It's so especially for our kindergarten families as well, because I know our teachers are struggling and crushed by this, because parents are valuable contributors to our kindergarten classrooms all the time. The activities will be changing, but so be prepared for that there really won't be access to the building, even as far as the orientation dates. We're really going to just focus on faculty, staff, and children being in the buildings. It just lowers the risk a little bit there. And then we have a medical waiting room, which is some people will call it like a COVID room or whatever that case may be. It basically, we want your children to stay home if they're sick. If they're not feeling well, they need to be staying home. We will figure out ways to deliver that instruction and get them so they're not missing. That's super important. If a child comes to school and becomes symptomatic during that day, that's if they come in and they get a low-grade fever, what we're doing is that will be screened in the health office, but then you will be contacted to pick up your child immediately, and you'll work with the health office on the re-entry of that. The medical waiting room is an area that we don't know if the student has just a regular flu, could have a sinus infection and the fever goes, whatever that case may be. Any of those symptoms will be the students will be hosted in the medical waiting room until they're picked up. And that was a requirement by DESE that we created that type of waiting room, so the health office could still see all students, and then other students would be separated until a parent could be picking up, which is super important to make sure you know what your plans are, as far as we always talk about on the emergency forms, who's picking up when, and who your plan B is to dismiss a student, because it's going to be important to get those students home as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Colleen. Glenn McKay again. So just around arrival, dismissal, and bus transportation. So as you can imagine, we have 3 unique campuses with 3 different arrival and dismissal protocols in place. I think that in this time, with the one thing that you need to be aware of, this, we've already shared those are posted within the district presentation, but our number one goal with that is to separate groups arriving at the same time to ensure appropriate distancing. So each school has a different entrance point for different grade levels. For example, at the Hood School, door 19 is the arrival point for kindergartners. Dismissal is going to be based on that same kind of theory around breaking up groups leaving at the same time. Bus transportation is still going to be provided. I believe the capacity around our buses is 55 students, but when you look at the new model of how we're placing students socially distanced on the bus, you get upwards of 23 students distanced appropriately within the DESE guidelines for buses. But be aware that siblings can sit together because they're considered the same family. So bus transportation will continue. Right now, our bus routes look pretty good around that number, and not having to make some major adjustments with the A and B cohorts. So we're in really good shape, and each school is working on their dismissal plan, but the arrival plans have already been shared. Mr. Colleen, next slide, please. snack, lunch, and recess, Mrs.
That's me, Glenn.
Thank you.
So we will be having snack, lunch, and recess, which is a good thing. All times will include a mask break. We realize the children are going to need to take multiple breaks throughout the day. Recess play, obviously, we will be taking the children out as much as possible with, weather permitting. Masks will be worn or encouraged, but a mask break will be included before we're headed back into the classroom. So depending on what the activity is outside and how we've social distanced them, they can take their masks off, have a mask break, but they will need to put their masks on before they come back into the building. Snack will be in the classroom, but we are hoping that the weather cooperates with us and that we can have snack outdoors as much as possible. Obviously, 6 foot of distancing is our #1 priority, and obviously they will not have their masks on while they're eating, so it's most important that they are distanced 6 feet away while they're eating. Lunches will be served and available for full-day kindergarten students. We ask that it would be helpful if you could start practicing how to open some of the snacks that you might be packing for your children, so that they'll be a little bit more independent when they come into school, and everybody's lunch. I think all 3 buildings are developing their lunch protocols and processes right now. We have the ability to feed the children in their classrooms, but we're also looking at utilizing cafeteria space, which is limited. There's, for most cafeterias, usually you can fit about 150 children in a cafeteria the size of the little school. Right now, with the protocols that are in the guidelines out from the Department of Education, I can fit approximately 24 on tables. But each school is different depending on the size of the cafeteria and the layout and whether we're using tables or we've decided to use desks. So that's all in the planning stages right now.
Thank you, Mrs. Molly. So classroom setup, the next 2 slides. So, we had to make some changes around the new DESE guidelines. One of those major changes for us was kindergarten students having individualized student desks to ensure they're distancing with their peers. So what you will see now in a kindergarten classroom is desks for each student that basically belong to that individual student and have appropriate sanitization protocols during that time. We talk a lot about storage of student materials, meaning like gone are the days for us when we could have a bin full of markers that each student grabbed a set of markers from and used and then returned to that space. So we're talking about storage for individual student items or educational tools as we've labeled them. We have plenty of access to soap and water. Hand sanitizers, as Mrs. Molly has said, has been provided outside of each classroom as well as inside of each classroom. We're really making, and PPE is provided as needed through the nurses. We're being really mindful of the transitions and how to maximize the opportunities for those for movement breaks while ensuring appropriate social distancing of 6 feet throughout the building. And new for us this year, individual Chromebooks issued for each kindergarten student.
And that timeline with the students being in person every day might be a little bit later in the fall as well, just trying to get them settled to the routines.
So classroom setup, I like this slide, what you will see and what you will not see. So you'll see individual boxes of manipulatives and educational tools, personal book bags assigned to each student, individual books selected and quarantined after use for the designated period, and students at individual desks. So we're looking at having 10 to 15 students per classroom in each physical space. What you will not see is more than 15 students in a classroom. That traditional kindergarten model of story time or even our morning routines where every student gets together and sits on a little rug on the specific dot. We're re-envisioning how we're going to do that to ensure the appropriate distancing. So you will not see that. Our classrooms were tables as opposed to individual desks. So each, you'd have a group of 6 students at a red table and 6 students at a blue table, and you could call that group up by color table. You won't see that anymore. You'll see individual desks. And, this is one of those things that we're struggling with as a group is we spend so much time in kindergarten teaching about that concept of sharing. But right now we're kind of like walking that back a little bit and teaching, not to share, and we have individual resources until things have been sanitized. So that's one of the unfortunate experiences for us in this, is that sharing piece is learned in kindergarten for the most part, and we're kind of taking that away. So we're going to be revisiting that as soon as it's appropriate to do so.
And then the work of trying to define what full day versus half day will be to make sure it matches in what the investment that you're preparing to make in the full day program versus the half day program. We've always said the part of the January parent orientation, and it will be consistent, is we're extremely proud, and we believe all of our programs meet the needs of where those students are. The full day program is something that came about a while ago to meet the needs of families, as far as whatever their work schedule, or if they felt that their student was prepared for a full day of learning versus a half day of learning. So there's nothing there that has changed as far as the messaging that goes along with that. And the most important thing we have is our faculty and staff. And even though that these changes of practice are occurring in the classroom and the classroom setup and how we move, and it will change the way that we've done business forever, for this year. The genuine love and care that your children will get from the adults in the building will be the difference, as far as feeling safe, having fun, and being engaged. So in the full day, it's pretty simple. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, you're getting 6 hours of 15 minutes of children in the building. And half day, it's about 3 hours and 10 minutes. Every Wednesday for the full day program is a half day, which cuts down, so they'll be dismissed with all the other students at that regular time. In the full day, you will have, in a full day classroom, and every day you'll have a daily special, whether it be art, music, PE, or digital learning. It won't be the frequency that it was in the past, but it will be provided at some level that there'll be a preparation of a special in there for the full day daily. They also have lunch and recess in school, and then they have the access to the after school care at the YMCA. And those are the biggest difference for the half day. The half day is that because that time is so much less, and the schedule in through there becomes a little bit of with the weekly special and trying to figure out what kind of access they're going to get. That's something that we're still working on with our schedules and the new times, and making sure, but they will have, and they always have had in the half day program, access to art, music, PE, or digital learning. I just can't say right now with what frequency that will be. They will have daily recess and mass breaks. Because the half day has so few minutes in learning, we've always tried to balance how much recess a half day kindergarten class might have, or whatever the case may be. We believe that that's going to be a super important part of our half day program this year, as long as we can get them outside safely for, with the weather, to go outside for recess and mass breaks, and even if we're indoor, taking those breaks and working on the social emotional learning. And then you don't have, when you're in half day, you don't have access to after school care because students are still here. So that's one of the big takeaways from that. And then that just kind of puts like what that classroom, I want to thank the kindergarten teachers, they put together just kind of that schedule of what you would see, on how that goes forward. So the morning, really, in the half day, you see the 2 columns here, the transition time into the classroom, getting ready. Everybody usually sets with a morning meeting time, or a special. And then the focus on math literacy, and then rotating in the science, social studies, and the social emotional learning is the core of the half day program, with the difference that when you look at the full day, you just start to see the lunch, the recess, a little bit more time to do some centers and practice of, some of the skills being taught, and then the special of the PE, art, and music.
Hi, everybody. So orientation and screening. In the past, we've always done orientation on the first few days. Kindergarten has always traditionally started a couple of days after the general population of the school. So we've always used those days for kindergarten orientation. This year, because we'll all be starting on the same day, we are using the September 14th, 15th, and 16th as days for orientation. Letters will be mailed home by August 28th with teacher assignments and your orientation appointment. This will be a chance for parents to accompany their students to school, meet the teacher and the staff, which will be done outside, and then the students will be brought in to visit the school environment, check out the classroom, and so on and so forth. And then they will be returned to the parents who will be outside. Once we're back in school, we will do the kindergarten screening, which last year we changed, the year before last, we changed to June. We used to do it in June, but since we weren't here in June, we couldn't do it. So we'll be doing a screening of all kindergartners during the first few weeks of school. And notification of those screening results will be delivered to parents by October 31st. It's a pass-fail result on the screening, but we want to preface that by saying, do not panic. We have never asked a kindergartner to leave if they didn't meet the requirements of the screening. So it's just, you know, it's just a dipstick of where the children are when they arrive at school in September. And then if they didn't pass, they will get some interventions, and then they will be rescreened later on in the year. So don't panic, depending on what your result is. It'll all work out. So, and finally, we thought it was important to give families a little bit of a to-do list. So remember to communicate with your children and be excited about school opening, that school is going to be fun and exciting. Although it might be a little bit different, we're still hoping to bring that fun and excitement to your child's experience. Please remember to submit your five-year-old physical/immunizations to the school nurse as soon as possible. We're going to focus on safety and personal hygiene here at school. So we ask that you start, dealing with some of those things at home. Practice hand washing and sanitizing quite regularly. Teach the kids the appropriate way to put on the mask, how to remove the mask. Reinforce the concept of physical distancing with your child. And we understand that young children really don't understand what 6 feet looks like. So if you could practice some of that when you're out and about, even at home, or if you go out to the park or anywhere, practice what 6 feet looks like. Talk to your children about how school will look different this year, and most importantly, listen to what they're saying and answer their questions honestly and to the best of your ability. And begin a nightly routine. This is something we ask every year, regardless of whether we're dealing with COVID-19 or not. But this is a good time right now, middle of August, with school coming up in September, to begin a daily and nightly routine with your children to prepare them for the transition between summer and going to bed a little bit later, to what the expectations are for you at home when they're getting ready to go to school. And lastly, we encourage you to maintain a positive mindset. We are genuinely all in this together, and we care greatly for your children, and their health and safety is our #1 concern, and we are trying our best to do the best for your children. So please try to maintain a positive mindset, especially when your children are in close proximity to you, because even when you think they're not listening, they're hearing you. So we thank you for all you're doing. We know that this is a tough decision, and I think we're going to go to some questions right now, Mr. Colleen.
Yeah, so I think now would be a good time that I'm going to exit this so we can see the chat. We'll try to get through as many questions as we can. I want to thank everybody, Dr. Daly and Mr. Connolly, for their flexibility and creativity with the planning to meet the needs of this year for the kindergarten programs, the work of the administration and the support of the classroom teachers and staff. and trying to put something together that is completely out of the norm, and it's been a lot of work, but we've hit it head on, so it's been great. And that positive mindset, I am catching myself frequently. My children are older, but it's so important when I'm talking about work, because I realize they're going back to school, that I have to filter myself often, whatever my personal beliefs are, to what it might be for them. So it becomes super important to do that. So that was a great message there, Mrs. Molly. Thank you. I am going to escape my PowerPoint just so I can come back and see the questions and go through that way as well. So Dr. McKay and Mrs. Molly, if you want to start with the questions, you can feel free to do so.
Let's see.
Oh, 57.
All right, I'm going up to the top.
I think it starts with Amanda, Mrs. Molly, and the question would be just confirming even full day kindergarten has a half day on Wednesdays, correct? That is correct.
Yes.
And then the next question, let's see.
Full day kindergarten will go full days, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, then half day. Yep.
That is correct.
Correct. Yep. What are the hours for the full day?
What are the hours for full day?
So that was addressed on one of the slides. I don't know that the start and stop times are still, were those communicated out?
I believe they were. So the start times for each school, I do have them right here. That
8:05.
Yeah, so the Hood and Little School are 8:05 a.m. to 2:20 p.m. and the Batchelder School is 7:45 a.m. to 2:00 p.m. And on the Wednesday half days, that would be 7:45 to 11:15 a.m. and 8:05 to 11:35 for the Hood and Little Schools.
Excellent job, Mr. Clean. You actually answered the next question by going into detail about the half day Wednesdays.
That's what we do.
Thank you. Let's see.
Did you say that kindergarten will be subassigned to cohort A and B should they need to move to hybrid? Yes, that is in fact, we have already done that work behind the scenes. So the children have already been assigned to a cohort.
You know, what the next part of that question too is good. We have not shared that because we really don't necessarily, we're not at that planning stage yet where we're thinking of needing that. One of the things that we've done as the district though, just to know that if there are siblings, the siblings are assigned the same cohort unless you specifically requested not to have your siblings in the same cohort.
What numbers are we looking for in North Reading? We currently have a 2-week case count of 5 out of 16,000.
Yeah, I think that's not.
I can answer that one. It's, you know, we're looking at the positivity rates on the governor's most recent, maps that he shared out. We want to be in the green and the white. Right now, we're as a district in the green. If we move into the yellow, we still can be doing our hybrid, but we need to be thinking about, are we trending towards the red, in which case we need to move to remote. So that's the metric we'd be using right now.
What will class size be? I think 10 to 15 students in a class is what we are anticipating. Obviously, it depends on the size of the classroom. Every classroom is a little bit different, but 10 to 15 is the average size of how many students will be in a classroom.
And that being said, there's and Mrs. Molly did a good job answering. It's there right now. We have 20 students in a full day kindergarten classroom, so we are creating spaces where students will receive some of their instruction and trying to figure out how to best manage that. But the bottom line is that every space that students will be in, that 6 feet is going to be mandatory. The masks will be on, and then they'll be educated that way.
What kind of changes did you make to ventilation system and filtration?
Go ahead if somebody wants to take it first.
Do you want me to address that?
Oh.
This is Michael Conley.
Hi, Michael.
Hi, how are you?
Wonderful. Thanks, Michael.
Just so everybody knows, Michael Connolly is the Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations of the North Reading Public Schools. Welcome, Mr. Connolly.
No problem. So we are certainly working in upgrading our HVAC and filtration systems. So we, at the high school and the middle school, I'm sorry, at the Bachelor Elementary School, we are certainly upgrading the rooftop HVAC units to be equipped with a special kind of air purifying filtration system. That's kind of the latest, technology to, further purify and catch any pathogens and viruses. So we are in the process of working with our contractor that's been servicing that equipment for several years to make that happen. And at the Hood and the Little elementary schools, we are in the process of upgrading the filters in all the unit ventilators in all the classrooms to the MERV 13 filters, which is the recommended, filter that would certainly catch all, pathogens and viruses. We're also working with our contractor that's been servicing the equipment to make sure the preventative maintenance and the cleaning of belts and air grates and return grates and so forth are being done. And we're also looking at adjusting some of the set points to just bring in more outside air, intake wherever possible through through the dampers and in the actual HVAC system itself. So there is a lot of work being done to make sure that the systems are operating well, and we're certainly upgrading the filters. And for the schools in the systems that can handle it, we're installing some extra purifying systems in the rooftop units itself.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
I think there was a second part to that question. What happens if parents choose to send sick children before they were allowed in?
Yeah, I don't recall a time when sick children were allowed in. We had some pretty set guidelines around, our procedures for that. But for this kind of scenario, we have readjusted items, and that was when Mr. Killeen was talking about the medical treatment room as well for suspected COVID and all those kind of things. So there are definitely some new protocols in place regarding that. But parents are notified immediately if anything is not right with their child through the nursing department, and the nurses reach out and we schedule a pickup. I will tell you that traditionally at many of the schools, the parents would enter the building and kind of do those exchanges. At this point, we're discussing having the students brought out to the parents and having that point of contact with the nursing at the front entrance area of each school.
Are the schools planning on doing more outdoor learning? This New York Times article makes a great case for why we should.
I mean, I think that all three of us have discussed that in detail. We're all fans of that. We discussed that particularly around snack and movement breaks and how to, adjust what you're teaching to bring it outside a little bit. The other thing is, though, that in the back of our minds, we always say, these are great, but we need to start to think about what winter looks like at our schools as well. So we're definitely pushing outside learning to a significant degree, as long as it's safe. But we also recognize that that is a great plan, but not always a great plan given the climate of where we live.
Can you talk a bit about what a remote day might look like for kindergarten? Should we go fully remote?
The good news is with this, we kind of started in the hybrid model. So our expectation, we're defining what our live teaching may be for kindergarten versus our on-demand teaching might be for kindergarten. So what we did in the past was we really pushed a lot of information that allowed families to access it when it was convenient to them. And at the kindergarten level, we will continue to need to be some level of flexible with that, understanding that at 5 and 6 years old, their independence in accessing all that technology, especially as we just start to teach them, might be challenging. So you could expect a balance of some live educational opportunities, and then hopefully some stuff that you might be able to access when it's convenient for you as well. But it would definitely be a little bit more scheduled and more routine based, but in the same sense, understanding where our younger students are, I think all the schools will be working with families to best meet that.
How will the children eat? I think we addressed that earlier. Every school is developing their plan for the cafeteria. I can speak for the little school. I'm looking at my cafeteria space and also the gym to space children out appropriately, 6 feet apart. They will be eating with their cohort of children. And, you know, for snacks, it can happen in the classroom, but we are encouraging to utilize outdoors to eat snack if possible.
Yeah, and Chris, just like I think we're all pretty much on the same page with that. The point that has to be understood is those tables that we traditionally used would fit upwards of 12 students at each table. So now when you spread children out to maximize the distance around that 6 feet, you can roughly fit 1, maybe 2 students at one of those gigantic 14-foot long tables. So right now, a cafeteria with a past capacity of 142 students eating lunch at the same time now is roughly 30 students, thus causing us to spread them out across potentially 2 settings within the close proximity to food delivery.
The next couple of questions kind of go along with some things that are being discussed that haven't been defined yet, especially on the will parents be required to fill out online or in-person forms for symptoms check. That is things that we are definitely talking about and aware that some places are, and we're going to figure out what makes the most sense for North Reading Public Schools. Our bathroom protocols and trying to work on where they are. The good thing is that our early childhood classrooms usually have close access to lavatories to kind of self-contain that. And yes, whenever the students take their masks off, there is a hand sanitizing, hand washing component to before and after. That idea of whenever they're going to their face or eating, we're talking about the hand sanitizing and then what goes along with that. The number of students in the building on a given day would change. Each building is a little different. So you just have to be aware of what those are. So it's about 50% of what your total enrollment is, plus your kindergarten being there just about all day. So for the bachelor school, it's right around 240 to 260 on the different cohort days.
Yeah, I liked your number there, Sean. It's 58%.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so you just take each school and divide that.
I think we covered what are the hours for half day. Sean, I have the little school is 8:05 to 11:35. Sean, what was
7:45 to 11:15.
And the hood, it follows the little school. The hood and the little are always on the same schedule, 8:05 to 11:35. Will there be testing for the children?
The screening was so these questions, I don't know when they came in. So the screening is probably the only we do evaluations and stuff like that. There's no formal testing for kindergarten. We have a screening and then we'll be checking to see if letters and numbers and stuff like that.
If they're referring to COVID testing, that is
oh, thank you.
That's still part of the discussion. We're actually having a call on this today. We might have more information on that coming soon.
That's awesome. I'm glad that I was in my full education mode, that I wasn't thinking about COVID testing. See, that's good.
Testing, it's not.
Yeah. So much better. I'm happy to be thinking about education and not COVID. The Wednesday half day rationale is around additional planning time for our educators for the work that they need to be doing. Any of the remote learning, because the students that are in would be limited and maybe more around some of the special work in the PE, art, and music at the elementary level. So, as far as that Wednesday half day, by the time the kids get home, they'd be looking at a little bit of time. I don't know if the other principals feel differently on that.
No.
Great.
Thank you for all that you're doing. It's impressive. I'm wondering if it is affordable to have touchless faucets and sanitizers, paper towel dispensers. I think we talked about this, but we, and
they're definitely not touchless. So,
yeah,
that as far as the good news is after you touch, you're washing or sanitizing right after. So that's we're kind of going with that. But we did think about that and in some of the different areas. Arrival plans
plans for the batch. I think they're in the reopening plan that Dr. Daly sent out. There's a link to click on, if I'm not mistaken.
And now that the times are in, we'll be able to give more detail, and you'll start getting more from the schools, all the schools. I would think that the answer to Ms. Scott's question would be yes. I would contact that district office about the bus if you're not, with the times change and the need for transportation might be different. There should be a contact information through there. I don't know if Michael Conley wants to give out Rosalie's name and number or not.
Yes, so Rosalie McKillop can address any bus-related questions. I think everyone knows that we had kind of a deadline of July 24th this year. We are still taking in applications, and we're going to do our best to accommodate as much everyone as possible. Based on the guidelines of the number of students on each bus. So Rosalie McKillop's phone number is 978-526-5252. That's her direct line. And if you have any questions related to busing or your bus pass application, you can call her directly. And her email is rmckillop, MACAILLOP @nrpsk12.org. I'll write that in the chat so folks can see that as well.
Thanks, Michael.
Will the children be permitted on the play equipment during recess? Do they need to maintain 6 foot of distance while attempting to play? We've been discussing the playground structures, and at the beginning, we're not going to let the children have access to the playground. We want to get our routines in place and, make sure that we've reviewed on a regular basis what 6 foot of distancing looks like and, what safe play looks like. So after a few weeks in school, we'll look at that again and decide, if we're going to be utilizing the play structures, how we'll clean those structures in between use, and so on and so forth. So at the beginning, no, we will not be using the play equipment. And yes, we will be attempting to maintain 6 foot distancing while the kids are outside playing.
Mrs. Molly, I think it's important to note as well that that's not a new thing in the sense that, yes, obviously we're looking at the cleaning protocols around the play structure for all grade levels, etc. But as far as like tradition is concerned, I think that there's a lot of capacity that needs to be built around students using the play structure. As you can imagine, 20 kids in a classroom prior to COVID running around outside and developing the peripheral vision and etc. is definitely a challenge for teachers and staff as well. So that wasn't a typical thing that they went on the play structure day one anyway, in most cases without some learning behind it anyway. So now we need to talk about developing the peripheral vision as well as understanding what 6 feet of distancing looks while introducing a play structure.
Mr. Colleen, I'm going to let you take the next one.
That's great. You still have a little time to make your decision. I think September 1st is the full deadline. Our goal today was to give you the best information that we have to make the best decision for your family. People choose full day kindergarten for so many different reasons. It's such an individual decision. So I feel pretty good about the information that we're giving out today. And I understand that I could get information tomorrow that I have to change what I have planned. So we are doing the best that we can. And I hope that, you can respect that. The next question is really great. Our youngest kids are like little magnets. And we understand that, and we understand how children are playing outside of school. Unfortunately in school, we have a respect, we have to be able to manage the safety to that highest level. The expectations for us and what we provide are so much higher than anything. So we are going to try to foster as many of those relationship questions. They're not going to be alone at lunch. That proximity would be there, but with the difference, we can definitely flex on that and work through that. The same thing with the teachers. If your kid falls and on the hot top and scrapes their knee, somebody's going to pick him or her up. Somebody's going to be there to take care of that child. Realize we're talking so much about what we have to try to change the way we do, but we understand that this is a huge part of what school is and what we are, and how the kids need each other as well. So it won't be like you're playing in the backyard with your friends. I can guarantee you that. But we'll be getting, we'll be definitely focusing on those relationships, working with our PE teachers to figure out fun, safe recess games that can keep kids engaged in relationships. And that same question, now that I'm back on the COVID track, is that Dr. Daly addressed, was the for students and teachers. Those are things that are being tested as well. Our custodial staff will be sanitizing the school daily, along with all the district has outsourced a third party cleaning company that will be sanitizing in the evenings as well. Thank you, Ms. Perry, for about the Chromebooks. We've had a lot of discussions about this. That's why we're not bringing those in a little bit later. And you'll get information for more about it as we go through there. Will after school care, with the time changes in the school, we're talking about what after school care could look like, especially for the Wednesdays. We've always contracted with the Y for after school care. They've been here on the Wednesdays half day. I don't know if Michael has more, Mr. Connolly has more information on that, or to be determined.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Clean. We will be having conversations with the YMCA in the very near future about addressing the early dismissal on Wednesday. So it's certainly our goal and desire to have that after school care available. So whether it be the YMCA or some other kind of in-house program, but we are working on that. It's kind of as we speak.
And so that goes right to that next question, that we are planning on having after school care available with our outside vendors, so they kind of control some of the decisions on that. Everything will be sanitized. It'll be still the same students in the school, but yes, it's another risk if you're choosing after school care, that your cohort does go beyond your classroom cohort if you choose that. Yeah, we've talked, so the classroom, there is a picture. All right, so you have to understand, changing the kindergarten classrooms has been a major, actually all of our classrooms has been a major undertaking, and the needs for storage are significant. So if anybody has an empty garage, email Chris Molly. If we could go through that, we will definitely have more pictures available. We're definitely talking about video tours and making them available, getting into the classroom. But there was one in the slide that kind of had that picture in there that showed a little bit of what they are.
And we have new desks. So the desks,
we have new desks coming in.
Haven't arrived yet. They are shipping soon. We saw the notification. So we don't have any desks in the kindergarten classrooms right now.
And yes, we plan on having them wear their masks even at the desks that are physically distant, except for when they're eating would be the one time that they'd be taking their mask down. Yes, it'll be taped and available. You've seen this. I realize the questions are coming in probably before all of Ms. Chernson. Yes, if you can't make the attend orientation date, you get in touch with us and we will figure out how to best meet that individual child's need the best that we can. That's correct, Mr. Silva. We're not letting adults in the building at this time. I've already talked about like GoPro, and I agree. It was one of the hardest things that we've had to make a decision. We've volleyed this back and forth. But at the time of that orientation, we have now welcomed all of our faculty and staff back in the building. There'll be other students and families in. So I hear what the questions are with that, and I will continue to think about things around that. But I appreciate the feedback for it, because it was a decision that we struggled with greatly. Immunizations can be dropped off right at the school offices. All of our school offices are open. And so feel free to drop by there. I think they're 8 to 2. I just lost my track in the chat, so if somebody can pick up on the questions.
Should we email or paper mail the physical to the nurse?
Drop it off, I think is better.
I think a physical probably, or like mail it.
Yeah, if you can drop it off, it's great. Yeah. If not,
or even mail it. I mean, I don't know. Is there any reason why they couldn't email it as an attachment?
No, I guess they could. I just don't know if they know the nurse's email. I don't want them.
Yeah,
You know,
so
it's supposed
each
to-
school has a fax and each school has a nurse with an email. So if you go onto each school's website, you could get the nurse's email and send it via email and make your life easy, or drop it off at the school during open hours. Each school has them posted on their website. Basically 8 to 2 every day, with the exception of Hood this week is being waxed in the lobby. So
Yes,
it is
Friday, the little school's being waxed in the lobby, so we will not be here on Friday.
Mr. Carlo, that's a great question. Right now, our half-day classes are separate than our full-day classes. But I see a lot of questions. If after this presentation, if you feel like you want to start full remote or just do half-day, that's the one to contact. You do have the right to make that change right now. You just need to notify your school principal, and he or she will make the necessary adjustments. But right now, they are separated, and all 3 schools, I think, are offering a full and half, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And Sean, I think we just need to go back and just reiterate. So number one, there's some comments relative to seeing the classroom prior to the September 1st decision. So, I mean, like Mr. Colleen said, it's very difficult to make a decision for us around allowing adults into a building, but everybody has to keep aware that we have to keep everybody within the building safe and keep the environment safe. So traditionally, yes, we've allowed tours and all that. This year, we're not, and it wouldn't be before the September 1st deadline because the materials haven't arrived yet. Our desks are shipping on that day. So we'll be getting the desks in anticipation for the first day of students arriving.
Perfect. The DESE guidelines is grades 2 and above are required to wear masks. The all students is a North Reading Public Schools encouragement for mask wearing. So yeah, we believe that science of keeping all kids safe, and that we know that with the social distancing and the mask wearing, that our numbers have been pretty good. And we believe that that's what we want to implement in our schools. Okay. We discussed August 28th being notified of classroom teachers, if not sooner. There'll be at least 1 teacher in every room. There will be different adults that come in the room. The specialists are push in. So the art, music, and PE teachers or digital learning teachers may be coming into the spaces at times, but following all the same expectations as the classroom teachers.
What are the criteria for changing to a hybrid model for K students? Similarly, a change to full remote.
There's a few comments around transferring to full remote in the chat box.
So that's exactly, if full remote is what you're interested in, please just contact your school office as soon as possible.
As a district, we'd go to full remote if the positivity rates in the town go into the yellow. We'd be looking to think about that, and then certainly if they're in the red. And if there is, another instance is just case by case. If there's not enough adults in the building to safely operate the building, we would need to go into remote. So that can sometimes be for, a longer period of time or a shorter period of time, depending on the circumstances. So, for example, if a certain number of adults have to quarantine, maybe for something that had no impact on the school, but something in their home or in their family, then we're not able to safely open, and we might need to pivot to remote because the adults may not be sick and they could work in remote. So if the question is about pivoting into remote, that's that situation. I don't really see us going to hybrid the hybrid model includes full day, 5 days a week for kindergarten. So I don't see a situation that you're basically getting the in-person model for grade K. So it would really just be going from that to the full remote if we needed to.
Great. I've answered a lot of these. We have policies in place about just what Dr. Daly was saying, if a student is symptomatic or test positive, or staff, what that will go through. So those are guidelines that we'll follow that came out from DESE. So you would be notified. Our school nurses, God love them, have all been working so hard to create their systems and frameworks to be able to do that.
There was a question about bus transportation after the Wednesday half day.
Buses will run.
Yeah, as normal.
So, and technically, just another point as it goes down a little bit, the buses, we're still running our traditional notification procedures around bus routes and everything in the transcript. Like, those things are still, that's where it gets published, and that's when you figure out your drop off and your drop off and pickup times for the bus routes. And I know Mr. Conley works on that at length and spends a lot of time, and we've pivoted a little bit with some of the routes. So any, notifications around that will come from that office, but they're usually published in the transcript prior. Just as soon as we have the information, we share it with you.
Where are we? I think we answered is there any possibility to transfer my child to remote? I think we answered that. What filters are you using? The MERV, I heard.
13.
What is it?
Right. So
13.
the recommendation, and this is what all school districts, municipalities are moving towards, is the MERV 13 filters. So that is the filter that we are looking to use at all schools, certainly all the elementary schools. There's a later question about the HVAC system. Is it certified or decentralized? I don't know if you're referring to so the E. Ethel Little School and the Hood Elementary School, their HVAC system is predominantly done through unit ventilators in the classrooms and the rooms. So, as opposed to kind of a rooftop ductwork system, which is a Bachelor Elementary School has. So we're certainly ensuring that everything is kind of operating well and correctly in all the unit ventilators, and upgrading those filters to the MERV 13 filters. The company that services the elementary schools, just so you know, they've been under contract for quite some time. We do go out to bid as we're required by law every 3 years, but the company that is servicing the equipment is very familiar with all three schools, and they've been doing preventative maintenance as well as other maintenance and filter changers and valve cleanings and so forth for a number of years now. And they are a licensed, certified HVAC company that specializes in commercial and municipal school buildings. So I hope that answers the HVAC questions.
Excellent. Mrs. Riley has a great question with her son having allergies and asthma, so tends to have a runny nose and a cough as symptoms for that. I think that will be, individual cases that will be communicated with the nurse and kind of going through that. I think that's going to be a much harder topic this year than some of those typical ones, but I know our health offices will work with you in identifying some of those symptoms and what they may look like.
Mr. Colleen, I think it's important to know too, like, our nurses are readily available, like an email or a phone conversation. Like, they welcome those conversations. So if you have any concerns about that, or whatever school it is, I would just say reach out to the school nurse and have those conversations. I like the proactive approach as opposed to the reactive approach. So if you anticipate a problem with something like that, just reach out. We're here for you. And that's kind of our job. And we want to make sure everybody's coming in comfortable and happy.
So much more information will be coming out of the buses and the arrival and dismissal at all schools. So be there. The paraprofessionals will be used to help maintain the class size and the spaces that will be managed for students instructionally in the full day kindergarten program. We kind of talk about it like a little bit in a center based, like it's not uncommon that in a kindergarten classroom that they work at their tables on different activities. And sometimes one or two of the tables are independent. Sometimes it's a direct with a teach. And other times it might be working with a paraprofessional in the classroom. So right now, if the students are working out of the classroom, it'll either be the teacher or the paraprofessional, because they can float between the two spaces that will be giving them. And there may be opportunities to be doing some of that live on screen as well. Protocols will be more detailed in the arrival dismissal. We'll have to get some more information to you about the HVAC systems. I think that's a great question. It's something that we're working on very hard with our school psychologists and teachers to take care of the social and emotional well-being of students. We will be discussing what mask breaks will look like in the classrooms in the building if they need one, in addition to the structured mask breaks. That will be part of the day. Nobody chooses cohort C. That's not a choice. Cohort D is remote right now. I think it's about I think I have
As far as kindergarten goes, I only have a hand.
one.
I think I have maybe 2.
Yeah, I think it's about 5% total.
Yeah.
For me in my building, if that. I lost the.
Have more kindergarten teachers been hired to teach
Just
kindergarten?
address that.
What?
We just addressed that.
Okay. Thank you everyone for today's session. Very informative. Bus transportation. Michael posted Rosalie's email address and telephone number for bus transportation. Thank you all for the efforts and information. Let's go class of 2033. Holy Hannah.
That made me feel young.
Wow. How will the district address and implement the social emotional piece, responsive classroom, open circle? I think Mr. Colleen just addressed that. We're working with our school psychologists to ensure that we're
Kindergarten teachers, that's their most important thing. You talk about the academics as being there. They're always advocating on the social emotional development of their 5-year-old. So I have no concerns about that when they're in the building.
And we do use open circle across all grade levels. Will kids be allowed to play together with masks on? Will they be allowed to interact with one another?
Yeah, they're definitely going to be, with the masks on, they're going to be interacting with one another and playing together. I mean, that's a given. So that's like one of those things we're going in, and figuring that out. But we want kids to be interacting with one another and figuring out what play looks like. So that'll be important to us.
Do you have enough cleaning supplies to keep the building safe for everyone? Michael, you still there?
Yes, I am. So right now I'm highly confident that we have the right equipment and enough supplies to continue to disinfect and sanitize and certainly meet the guidelines with what we're putting in place with both the product and the equipment that we've been ordering and receiving in.
All right, great.
Can you provide all the question and answers in an email? We will not get through all of the questions being asked, and they are all really great questions. Is this being recorded?
Being recorded. The recording will be shared out to all kindergarten parents after this meeting.
And honestly, we're pretty close. We're getting close to the end of them.
Yeah. If students do not ride the bus and are instead dropped off, how close are parents allowed to get to the school? Parents can come to the school in the morning. We have, I think all 3 schools have a live drop-off in the morning where we have staff available, where parents will drive up to the school and children will, get out of the car and proceed to the designated spot outside the school. Are all staff expected to practice social distancing outside of the school? Outside on the school, I don't understand the question. Outside of the school on the school property or in general?
I think that we can move on from that question. I think that's kind of like how are we monitoring that safety? We expect our staff to be safe just like we expect everybody to be practicing. We can't manage.
You are taking a lot of chances on not cleaning properly with the right professionals. We have contracted with a cleaning organization that is coming in at night to sanitize the school every evening. Will cohort D be available for kindergarten?
Answered.
Yes. After school program for others is exposing our children, and I have no idea their protocol, which should not be practiced. I think we addressed that in a previous answer. Thank you to the staff and educators for presenting today. The communication has been thorough and the opening plan is above and beyond compared to most surrounding towns and districts. Thank you so much. Keep up the good work on keeping our kids learning safely. Thank you, Mr. Gravel. We appreciate your kind words. Thank you so much for all of the thought and hard work that has gone into these plans. Thank you, Genso family. How many kindergarten classrooms are there at the batch?
There are currently 3 full-day kindergarten classrooms and 1 half-day kindergarten classroom.
And so, Chris, I think you and I are the same with 2 full-day classrooms and 1 half-day.
Correct.
And then just to take that one step further, there'll be additional spaces that will be identified as kindergarten spaces where our students and adults will move to make sure that we're maintaining the 6-foot social distancing.
When do you expect the after-school program details to be finalized and communicated? Michael?
So that would be through the YMCA.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So we continue to have conversations with the YMCA, but I'm sure they'll be communicating that, you know, in the near future. But we're going to be touching base with the YMCA, you know, this week and as we get closer.
The same classroom teachers teaching cohort C as D. So yes. Right now we're built in a way that we can go. So the kindergarten teachers will have that the students are assigned to will have remote learning responsibility for cohort D. Ashley DeBella, that's going to be a working with the doctor and the health with our school nurses on that. So if it's a concern, reach out.
Some schools have visors attached to their desk. Was that considered?
There's a lot of research on that goes both ways. So Dr. Daly, perhaps you should talk a little bit about that. You've done extensive research on that kind of plexiglass model.
Yeah, there's some situations where we are using those, but as a norm, that is not recommended. The Department of Ed's made it very clear that it's not recommended for all situations. It can actually help spread coronavirus a little bit more. It's more surfaces that need to be cleaned and contained. So in some situations where there's other issues or other concerns, we're going to do that, but not for all students. It's not recommended.
Will bike racks be available if kids want to ride bikes in and home with a parent? I can only speak for the little school. We do have bike racks in the front of the school. I believe they will be available. I don't know about my counterparts, but I imagine they do.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those beautiful things about having neighborhood schools is, you know, having the students actually walk to the building or ride their bikes. And it's one of those things that, you know, we haven't received guidance on not allowing them yet. And I can't see, you know, a bike becomes more of an individualized thing. That would be something that, you know, I would look to have part of the cleaning protocols associated with the playground structure.
Let's see. Our son has a safe friend that will be at the batch with him. Can we request that they be in the same class? That's a batch question.
Oh. I don't recognize what a safe friend is. You know, any social placements we don't really account for. But if, you know, as far as that's just like a traditional year, like, you know, if we know that there's friends, can we try to sometimes accommodate it? It's pretty late in the game at this point, as far as where the cohort and the class sizes are, but feel free to shoot me personally an email. But the designation of safe doesn't mean that they can be less than 6 feet apart or anything like that. It just would mean it's really just a social placement as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you very much to everyone for all your hard work and putting the best plan in place for our kids. I appreciate all of the effort. This was very informative. Thank you, Janelle Sutherland. Thank you for all your hard work. We know it consumed your summer and we appreciate the effort. Thank you, Mr. DePriest. Thank you. This has been helpful. We appreciate all your efforts. Thank you. Thank you for all your hard work during.
Okay, I think we're at the thank you portion of the presentation. So we appreciate the thank yous.
I didn't want anybody to think that I was.
I know.
Again,
thank you. We appreciate your support as well.
And we want to make this successful for everyone. So if there's any like other questions that are like school specific or anything like that, I would encourage you to reach out to myself or the other principals. We're available. We're working. So, I mean, the turnaround time on my email hasn't been as great as it always has been, just due to the sheer number of emails. But reach out. We'll get back to you, and we want to make it a really positive experience for everyone involved. So, thank you.
I want to thank Dr. Daly and Mr. Connolly for their support in today's meeting, and also all the teachers and staff that decided to come and listen to the parents and the questions that they have, because it will help them with their planning as well. And do expect more communication from the school. You now have all been officially rolled over in our system, so you'll get emails from our Blackboard Connect, so it doesn't have to be separate emails, and we'll keep posted. And as Dr. McKay said, feel free to contact us. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the summer.
Thank you.